Before dawn, Ukraine used decoy drones, jamming, and precision rockets to disable a key Russian communications relay near Kuga.
3:49 a.m. Deep in the dense forests outside Kuga, the air goes unnaturally quiet around a Russian satellite communication relay station built like an armored web of bunkers, radar masts, and uplink towers. This is not a routine strike window, because what sits inside Kuga is the kind of node that keeps artillery coordination alive from Donetsk to Bryansk. In a single opening move, Ukraine pushes 26 loitering munitions forward, each costing about $4,500, then follows with 5 long-range Vilka M rockets priced around $2,500 each. Above them, Su-27 air superiority jets valued at $3,000,000 each, and MiG-29 fighters worth about $2,200,000 apiece slide into position not to bomb, but to cover the corridor. Here is the trick that makes this attack different. Ukraine lets Russian radars chase phantoms, using more than a dozen dummy UAVs that cost about $2,000 each just to pull expensive interceptors into the wrong angles and expose radar habits. While Russian Tor M2 and Pantsir S1 batteries start firing into decoys and noise, the real threat is still outside the perimeter, still silent, still timed. From 22,000 feet, high-altitude reconnaissance drones valued around $8,000 each sweep in from the southern corridor, mapping radar stations, satellite uplinks, and anti-air positions around Kuga. Then Ukraine brings the airwaves to heel as Boisvel AD electronic warfare trucks, roughly $1,500,000 each, jam tactical bands from about 6 miles away, scrambling key signals and making even backup navigation flicker. On the ground, another layer is already moving before Russia fully understands the shape of the fight. Mine-laying robots, small 6-wheeled machines worth around $3,000 creep along maintenance trails near the rear access routes, planting directional charges where reinforcements would normally surge. By the time Russian operators realize the sky is crowded with ghosts, the battlefield has already shifted under their feet. And then the clock finally matters. At 3:49 a.m., from a concealed launch point near Pachino, roughly 31 miles southeast of Kuga, a Ukrainian crew fires a salvo of 6 Vilka M guided rockets, each built with redundant navigation, so the strike holds even under jamming. Russia will have seconds to decide whether to keep burning interceptors on decoys or pivot and risk letting the real missiles slip straight into the relay core. If you had to bet right now, does Russia stop the main strike in time, or do those rockets break through and take the uplink down? Drop 1 for shield holds, or 2 for Kuga goes dark. If you want the clean step-by-step breakdown of what the sensors saw next, hit subscribe so you do not lose the signal when this story gets loud. As the 6 Vilka M rockets close on Kuga, the Russian defense network finally snaps fully awake because the signature on the scopes is no longer ambiguous. This is not a probe, not a distraction flight, but a timed saturation attempt aimed at the heart of the relay station. 5:12 a.m. The command posts feeding the sector push one order down the chain: engage the inbound tracks immediately or lose the node. The first layer belongs to 2 Tor M2 batteries positioned on opposite sides of the complex, built to swat down fast targets at short range before they can bleed into the inner perimeter. Their operators do what they are trained to do: lock, ripple fire, and trust the mathematics of intercept geometry. One missile is destroyed outright in a clean mid-air detonation, and another takes fragments, wobbles, then tumbles off course and dies in the forest short of the target. But the equation does not close, because 4 missiles remain, and now the burden shifts to the second ring. A Pantsir S1 unit, a hybrid platform combining surface-to-air missiles with twin 30mm cannons, snaps between tracks as the picture fractures into overlapping returns and fading decoys. 2 interceptors launch, one detonates too early, and the other loses lock at the worst moment when the inbound tracks split and force the radar to choose. And this is where the Ukrainian timing starts to feel ruthless. Ukraine did not need every missile to hit. It needed the defense grid to spend its attention, its shots, and its confidence, because that is what opens the ground. With the air defense distracted, the next layer is already moving under the tree line, close enough to smell burning insulation from the outer compound. A 12-man Ukrainian infantry squad advances from the southwest forest edge to just over 900 yards from the perimeter, carrying 82mm mortars and portable UAV terminals. Each mortar tube is paired with micro UAVs, providing real-time thermal scans of Russian trench lines and mortar pits, turning the dark into a live map. This is not a loud assault. It is a quiet geometry problem, and the squad solves it by letting the drones pick the first coordinates. The first mortar rounds do not aim for spectacle. They aim for function, dropping into trench segments, comms points, and the small pockets where crews shelter while waiting for the next order. Russia's garrison is suddenly forced to choose between staying low under indirect fire or standing up to relocate, and either choice costs seconds they do not have. At the same time, Ukrainian loitering munitions that were not spent as decoys begin to behave like cutters, circling low and searching for the seams in the perimeter. When a position lights up even briefly, they dive, forcing Russian crews to shut down, move, or risk being pinned in place. The result is not one decisive hit, but a layered squeeze: air pressure from above and ground pressure from the flank. Russian command tries to stabilize by pushing fires back toward the suspected launch and control points, because that is the normal response when you think you have identified the source. A ripple of 300mm Smerch rockets is launched toward the suspected Ukrainian fire point, the kind of blunt force strike meant to erase the problem in one sweep. But the Ukrainians are already treating counterfire as an expectation, not a surprise, and their crews initiate emergency withdrawal almost as soon as the third missile leaves its rail. Within 90 seconds, the launcher backs off the site and disappears into a concealed dirt path, leaving only scorched earth and empty racks to receive the incoming Russian rockets. The Smerch impacts hit hard, but they hit absence, and that is the point. Ukraine is not just striking Kuga, it is teaching Russia to waste time and ammunition on ghosts. By now, Kuga's outer sectors are no longer stable. Fires creep through the perimeter, feeds glitch, and the garrison is caught between sky and soil with fewer places left to reposition without being seen. And just as Russian command scrambles to reassert control overhead, the next phase is already lining up to turn a damaged relay station into a blackout. With the defensive shield overloaded and 4 Vilka M rockets still inbound, Ukraine switches from air pressure to ground pressure, because that is how you turn a complex into a trap. The Russian operators stay glued to their radar picture, trying to reacquire terminal tracks, and that fixation creates a blind spot on the perimeter that lasts just long enough. A 12-man Ukrainian infantry squad slides in from the southwest forest edge and stops just over 900 yards from the compound. They are carrying 82mm mortars and portable UAV terminals, and they move like they already know the exact trench segments that matter. Each tube is paired with micro UAVs, feeding thermal scans, so every adjustment is immediate and every round is walked onto something that cannot easily move. 5:17 a.m. The first 82mm mortar thumps, and it is not fired for noise or shock value. The round lands directly on a forward fire control post, cratering the position and scattering its operators before they can pass clean targeting corrections to the rest of the garrison. In that instant, Russia loses a small but crucial layer of coherence, the human layer that stitches sensors to decisions. Then the low-altitude phase arrives, fast and mean. FPV drones come in at nearly 90 miles per hour, flying tree high and tight to the ground, each carrying a 2-pound shaped charge. They are cheap enough to spend, small enough to hide in clutter, and precise enough to punish anything that breaks cover. Russia answers the way a fixed site usually answers, by pushing armored mass into the problem. 2 BTR-80 armored personnel carriers roll out from a covered garage, each worth over $1 million, with dismounted troops stepping out alongside them carrying PKM machine guns and RPG-26 launchers. The plan is simple. Move the armor into the open, suppress the tree line, and buy time for the air defense crews to finish the real fight above. But Ukraine has anticipated the choreography. The drones do not chase infantry, they chase mobility and fuel. Because a burning vehicle does more than destroy steel, it freezes a corridor. One FPV strikes the lead BTR's front tire and the steering goes dead. Then another hits a side panel and ignites an external fuel tank, turning the vehicle into a rolling flare that lights up the entire western sector. While the garrison reacts to the burning carrier, the second Ukrainian element moves, the robotic flank. Tracked ground vehicles about the size of a small ATV creep in from the northwest, each costing about $45,000 and equipped with onboard cameras, grenade dispensers, and infrared jammers. They are not there to win a firefight, they are there to sever the nerves, back up power stations and data nodes before the missiles finish the cut. The robots push into the technical zone, and the effect is immediate and ugly. Grenades are lobbed into weapon storage sheds, relay panels are sprayed with electronic disruptors, and crews who try to rewire or reroute are forced to duck and scatter. At the same time, the mortar team keeps walking rounds along trench lines, using micro-UAV thermal cues to strike wherever movement clusters. Within minutes, the western and northwest sectors are no longer defensive positions, they are burning obstacles. Fire spreads through the outer perimeter, and the first signs of systems failure appear. Flickering feeds, stuttering comms, and operators switching to hand signals because radios are unreliable. The compound starts to feel smaller, not because the walls moved, but because the usable space inside them collapses. This is the moment the Russian garrison realizes it is being attacked in layers that do not care about tradition. Expensive air defenses are trying to solve fast targets overhead, while cheap drones and cheaper robots are tearing up the ground infrastructure that makes air defense meaningful in the first place. The site is being forced into a single impossible choice: either look up and lose the ground, or look down and miss the missiles. Smoke rises from burning relay towers as the ground fight intensifies, and Russian command scrambles for one last corrective move: regain control of the air. Fighters are tasked to push the corridor back, to clear the sky long enough for the final intercepts, because if those remaining Vilka M tracks are not stopped, the strike is going to hit the core. The problem is that by now, Kuga's skies are no longer contested, they are being shaped by Ukraine's timing. And as that last decision is being made, the final blow is already falling out of the dark, moving it over Mach 3, aimed at the uplink dome and the central coordination shelter. The ground battle is loud, the air picture is chaotic, and the next 10 seconds decide whether Kuga stays a functioning node or becomes wreckage. Quick check, are you still with me right now? If you are, drop your country in the comments so I can see where this story is being watched from. 5:24 a.m. The last defensive layer around Kuga becomes more theater than protection. A Pantsir S1 tries to reacquire the terminal tracks after two Vilka M rockets split their approach and bank in opposite directions, forcing the fire control to choose. And that split second is the entire gap Ukraine needs. As the lock breaks, legacy systems come alive out of desperation. ZSU-2, 3, 4 anti-aircraft guns open up, their radar-guided cannons throwing tracer arcs into the night. But against missiles moving at over Mach 3, the timing window is brutal, and the rounds trail behind the targets like a warning that arrives too late. In under 30 seconds, the outcome resolves into numbers that Russian operators can see but cannot change. Of the 6 Vilka M rockets launched, 2 are intercepted and 4 break through, still fast, still guided, still aligned on the inner heart of the complex. The defense shield does not collapse everywhere. It collapses exactly where it matters. The first impact hits the satellite uplink dome, and the effect is immediate, not just physical damage, but functional failure. The dome does not need to fully crumble to stop being useful. It only needs its internals torn and its alignment compromised. And the strike leaves it burning from within, with secondary fires climbing up the support frame. Seconds later, another Vilka M drives into the central data coordination shelter, the place that turns raw inputs into usable targeting flow. The blast punches through the structure, power drops, and the site's internal rhythm breaks, as if someone cut the nerves instead of just cracking concrete. The visual is dramatic, but the real change is invisible. The relay station is supposed to keep artillery coordination and long-range fires synchronized across the Donetsk-Bryansk axis. And when the shelter goes dark, the downstream units do not instantly stop fighting, they start guessing. Radios fall back to older protocols, crews switch to backup routing, and the speed of coordination slows to something Russia cannot afford under pressure. Around the perimeter, the ground layer keeps the squeeze on because Ukraine is not trying to win a single explosion, it is trying to prevent recovery. FPV drones keep snapping at anything that moves into the open, and mortar fire continues to walk trench lines, forcing crews to stay pinned while the core burns and the engineers are unable to reach the damage. Russian command tries to stabilize the picture by pushing reinforcements toward Kuga, but the approach routes are no longer clean. Burning vehicles, scattered debris, and repeated drone passes turn the perimeter roads into choke points, and every attempt to reorganize becomes another moment where Ukraine can observe, adjust, and strike again. By the time the fires light up the smoldering dome, the message is clear. This was not a random hit, and it was not luck. It was a 6-layer sequence designed to exhaust the defenses, blind the operators, and then cut the node at its most sensitive points. Kuga is still standing in places, but the function that made it valuable has been crippled, and now the question shifts from what was hit to what can possibly be kept safe next. By 5:31 a.m., the fires inside Kuga are no longer isolated incidents, they are system failures that compound by the minute. Emergency crews try to reroute power and data through secondary lines, but the architecture was never designed to survive a precision cut at this depth. The relay station still exists on the map, yet functionally it has slipped offline, its role in the wider network reduced to fragments and workarounds. Downrange, the effects begin to register in quieter ways. Russian artillery units tied to Kuga report delayed fire missions, incomplete targeting packets, and growing reliance on local spotting instead of centralized coordination. Nothing stops outright, but everything slows, and in modern warfare, that lag is often more dangerous than a clean blackout because it forces commanders to act on partial information. Ukraine does not linger. As dawn edges closer, its ground elements peel back into the forest in planned sequences, drones covering withdrawal routes and mortars firing final shaping rounds to discourage pursuit. The robotic vehicles are either extracted or abandoned after completing their task, treated as expendable tools rather than trophies. Within minutes, the battlefield begins to empty, leaving Russia with damage, smoke, and questions. Russian forces attempt to re-establish a perimeter, but the tempo is gone. The confidence that comes from layered defense has been shaken, and every radar return now carries doubt. Was it real? Or was it another decoy? Another ghost designed to pull attention away from what actually matters. The strike on Kuga is not about one relay station, and that is the part that lingers. It demonstrates a method, a way to turn cost imbalance, timing, and coordination into a weapon that attacks systems instead of symbols. Expensive defenses were forced to chase cheap threats, while the decisive blows arrived on schedule and on target. For Ukraine, this is not presented as a turning point victory, but as proof of concept. If a hardened node like Kuga can be disrupted this way, then every similar site across the network has to be re-evaluated, reinforced, or moved, and all of those options cost time and resources Russia does not have in abundance. And for Russia, the lesson cuts the other way. Static infrastructure, no matter how well protected, becomes a liability once the opponent can map its rhythms and exploit its dependencies. Kuga does not just represent a damaged asset, it represents a warning that the fight is shifting from raw firepower to systemic pressure. If you want to keep tracking how these methods evolve and what they mean for the next phase of the war, subscribe and stay with us. This story is not about what exploded tonight, it is about what may no longer be safe tomorrow.